Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Cuppa Terrific, where dreams become doorways and curiosity is the compass. Today, we are joined by Dr. Carl Greer. He is a Jungian analyst and he is a retired clinical psychologist, an author, as well as a shamanic prac- practitioner. Dr. Greer, thank you so much for coming today.
Well, thank you for inviting me, Cherie.
Yes, I'm so excited. It's been a little while that I have wanted to have you here, but just trying to take in a lot of things. I personally have gone through a retirement from the
Mm.
military. I started a new job,
Mm.
and I'm kind of doing some life searching of my own. So it's kind of perfect that your team reached out to me when I restarted my podcast back up. Because your book has been fantastic, by the way, just kind of
Thank you.
helping me like reground myself, and thinking about some of the spiritual work that I'm doing. Um, but yeah, so the book that I'm talking about is the Go Within to Change Your Life book. You've written a couple of other books that are also about changing your life. But this I think is your most recent book, if that's
Yes, it is.
correct.
Yes, it is.
Okay. And that one came out, is that this year?
Yes, yes, it did.
Okay, lovely. Yes. And I did see that just recently you were posting that your book is on sale for folks.
Yes, the uh, digital book is right now.
Yes.
Yes.
Wonderful. Well, for those of you who are looking for the ebook, that's great. You can look at it there, but also so you know, it's a workbook. So you're able to actually write for those of you who are kind of like me. I like to use my hands. I like to write things with my actual hands. It's nice to have something that you can write in and take notes in and highlight stuff. So that's kind of nice. And you can have it right by your bedstand. So if you want to work on something because you have a night where you wake up and you can't sleep, or you just have a dream that you want to quickly capture something, it's really nice to just have it right there. Um, but with that, I'll go ahead and start going into some of my questions for you. To give listeners a foundation, would you please share a summary of like what is Jungian psychology, particularly focusing on what are archetypes and discussing the collective unconscious, and also what drew you personally into that world of study and practice?
Well, Jungian psychology got uh, started in the early 1900s when Carl Jung, uh, a had been doing psychiatric work with schizophrenic patients, uh, started a relationship with Sigmund Freud.
Hmm.
And the two of them collaborated for a while, and then they became rivals and went their separate ways. Um, but both of them believed that we had unconscious factors in our lives that were impacting what we said and what we did. And eventually, the Jungian psychology approach viewed it a little differently than Freud's, in that Jung said we not only have a personal unconscious that results from things that happened in our lifetime, but we also have in our unconscious something he called the collective unconscious, which was common to all people. And in it, there are energies that influence how we think, act, and feel. And he called those archetypes. And he said, because we like to, as humans, personify things, he said, well, this one archetype is like the mother archetype, and this one's like the
Hmm.
father archetype, and this was like the warrior archetype. And that meant that sometimes we are in the grip of these energies that influence how we think, act, and feel, and we don't really know what's going on. In other words, we can be very motherly, which in some ways is nice, but sometimes it's not serving us. Or similarly, we can be a warrior, and sometimes that's terrific, but sometimes it's not. And so to tease out how those factors are influencing one, Jungian psychology would have a person do approaches like work with their dreams. They would do something called sand tray work, where they would be putting into a tray of sand objects that they would hope would start to give them insights into their unconscious processes. And then he talked about a process called active imagination, where under right circumstances, you can let your unconscious just express itself. And then with your conscious mind, trying to make sense of what it means, all for the purpose, Cherie, of helping somebody live their lives a little differently than they would had they not done the work. I got interested in this, um, having had a more traditional life as a businessman and a teacher, and uh, but having always had an interest in psychology, and went back to school, got my degree as a clinical and training as a clinical psychologist, and then went on to become a Jungian analyst. And the last half of my life, that's been a real big part of what I have done and what I've been interested in. The shamanic work that you mentioned has been equally important to me, and I've been involved in that for probably more than 25 years.
Hmm. Yeah, was there a moment like when you were going through school and, to become a clinical psychologist and studying Jungian psychology where everything, the work just kind of clicked for you? Or did it just start off that way? Were you just drawn to it somehow?
I don't know if it's ever really clicked. I've been work, I've been, I've been, I've been working on it. I get, if the clicking is kind of opening a doorway here and seeing through a window, I get those still. And, kind of as I see it, both in any kind of healing work, shamanic or otherwise, a person explores their past so that it doesn't live within them in the same way that it did, so that in the present they can make better decisions than they would had they not done the work. But shamanism in Jungian psychology also has this idea that we all have a future and we have some ability with spirit, however one thinks about spirit, to have a good, better, best future. And once we lock into a future that's desirable for us, that also influences what we do in the present. So all the work, psychology, shamanism, is to help one, in my opinion, make better decisions in the moment than they otherwise would. A little bit freed up from their past, hopefully a lot, if that's possible, and in sync with the most desirable future they can be intending in the moment.
Hmm. So that leads into my next question. I was going to say, how were you introduced to shamanic traditions and starting to go and meet with other shamans around the world? And how has it shaped your understanding of spirit and of healing?
Uh, when I was um, 9 years old, my mother had died about a year earlier, and I had a very severe uh, ear infection. And this was back in the 1940s when such infections could kill you. It was mastitis. And uh, so I was at home, not going to school by myself for a few months. Uh, so I was like part of uh, August, September, October, and part of November. And during that time, I read a lot of stories about mountain men and women and Native American people. I was just attracted to that. Uh, Never since that time, I read books about it, and uh, I explored various mystical paths, mostly at an intellectual level or reading about them, uh, but not necessarily experiencing it. But I
Mm-hmm.
started to have some dreams. I'm in my 50s,
Mm-hmm.
uh, that were medicine dreams. They were Native American themed, and I encountered a variety of people. And at the year 2000, thereabouts, my wife gave me a book called Shaman Healer's Sage by Alberto Villoldo, which I read. And in it, he said that he had classes. So I signed up and started to go to his classes. I went to all of them and became a teacher with him, and started to go down to Peru, and I was in Bolivia as well, and had many trips down there in conjunction with him, but also subsequently on my own. And met with many shamans, had many experiences, and came back to the States, did a fair amount of teaching on my own, wrote the books. And it's been a really important part of my life in that it's allowed me to experience some of the things that I read about, wrote about, and talked about. So it just was a grounding for me that has become part of me. And I think about life in the world differently than I did before I started on that journey.
Mm-hmm. It's almost like shamanic practice kind of gave you a new 4D thinking in a spiritual sense that you just didn't, you couldn't quite get yourself around before.
Yeah, that's very true, Cherie. It relativized things for me. It made me really uh, feel and understand that I was part of a much larger picture, and that I was somewhere before I was in this existence right now. I have some purpose. Uh, Continually, I'm trying to figure out that and live it. Uh, and I know I'll be someplace afterwards in some form. And it's made me have realizations about those things that I didn't have before I started the work.
Hmm. So, how do you define spirit in this context now that you've had some shamanic practice? And I imagine with a lot of the shamanic practice, there's more meditation and what the Western world is more opening up to in mindfulness. That's been a thing in the world for a very long time, but we're really starting to embrace that more here on this side of things.
Yes,
But there's a spiritual reward or place in it in a spiritual sense that it sounds like in shamanism that you probably or shamanic practice where you get to experience this on a spiritual level. Is there um is there a lot of meditation or is that related to dreams?
uh, that's obviously the big question. Everything you're talking about spirit and God, and um, on one of my shamanic journeys, I found myself propelled through a tunnel-like space and came to a crystalline-like matrix, and I was kind of swished through that, and I came to some energetic place, which the word that came to me when I got there was the quiet. And its essence, Cherie, that I felt was it was a place before any ideas, before the form of an idea, before the energization of an idea, just pure potential. I've
Mhm.
since thought about it, and I think pure awareness. It just was. And this
Mhm.
was before the Big Bang. So this is the energy, the primordial energy before the Big Bang. And being in that energy, and I subsequently, just because I felt this, felt that it had a very loving, compassionate aspect to it. Uh, not necessarily uh, one that can explain why people do bad things to other people, but it just had a compassionate, mysterious feel, and I felt it. I mean, I was there in that space and felt it. And since when I read about Kabbalah and this
Mm-hmm.
the Ein Sof and Hindu traditions of
Mm-hmm.
this thing, and it's kind of a space before gods, the idea of gods and
Mm-hmm.
so forth. It's just uh, an energy that I also have come to believe is with us all the time. I mean, it's not
Mm-hmm.
just back before the Big Bang. We live in that. That also is the space that people who do shamanic and spirit
Mm-hmm.
work go to help things happen in this reality that
Mm-hmm.
otherwise wouldn't had they not had their interventions. That's say we prayer for that, miracles from that. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and it almost by definition is a big mystery. And
Mm-hmm.
to your question about, well, how does one get to it and relate to it? Uh,
Mm-hmm.
we have lots of aspects to our brains and our minds.
Mm-hmm.
We have a sympathetic nervous system, a parasympathetic nervous system, and so we have uh, our uh, cognitive work. We're thinking clearly and we have to respond to stuff. But when we're
Mm-hmm.
in the so-called altered state, we're more open to connect to that energy of the quiet.
Mm-hmm.
And if it is the place before creation, then by definition, it contains everything, uh,
Mm-hmm.
and everything is contained by it. So when you hear, the one and the many, so the
Mm-hmm.
quiet's in everything, and the
Yeah.
many in the one, and uh, and that's a hard thing to get our heads around. And so we have this pure essence, and then we have all the stuff that we make of it. and,
Mm-hmm.
and different people make different things, and to kind of sort that out, and then
Mm-hmm.
if you sort it out a little differently than me, and we get into a fight, and how that's going to, so that
Sure.
gets into all the dramas of life. But
Sure.
nonetheless, I have a feeling that that's the way it works, and
Mm-hmm.
I try to get to it by quieting my mind. And this would be back to what you were suggesting for meditation and things. However, you can
Mm-hmm.
just, as I talk in the Zen stuff, get rid of the monkey mind, and you're just, and that's speaking for myself, uh,
Mm-hmm.
not easy. Uh, but you work on it. You work with your breaths. You try to have concentration on things, and so you are more open to the energy, the primordial energy of what I call the quiet.
Yeah, I love that you have this idea of the quiet. When you were talking about it, the thing that kind of comes to mind for me as you were like explaining it is there are certain types of people that tend to be a cup half empty kind of person and the cup half full kind of person,
Hmm.
And if you look at the quiet as emptiness and nothingness, it
Yes,
is emptiness and nothingness. But if you look at it as it is the everything, it is the everything. It is both of those things. So really the power is in how you are viewing what it is. So you can put yourself as a part of that or as not a part of that. So there's a
yes.
there's a certain sense of choice there that's really beautiful that you have to take a responsibility to like work yourself towards if you're um, if you're aware of these kinds of spiritual development things. But that's what it makes me think of when you think of people that are kind of in this trapped state of thinking, you know.
Hmm.
That's a really great metaphor for it, though, is I think the quiet, as you use it, is because it is both things. Both are true at the same time.
Well, I
Um,
think you've said it, what I consider to be a very profound thing. What is the quiet? Well, the quiet's everything. Oh, that's interesting, Cherie. What is the quiet? What's nothing?
it's
Well, how can
nothing.
it be
Yeah,
nothing and everything? Well,
it has to be
that's just
both.
that's just what it is.
Because it has to be both. It has to be both.
Yes.
Um, It's just like a circle. It can't be a beginning or an end, but
Yes.
how does it exist if it doesn't have one?
Hmm.
It is a
Hmm.
conundrum in and of itself. You have to just, there's this leap of faith that you just have to know that it is.
Hmm.
Um, and that's part of the human condition, I think, is learning to develop that spiritual trust.
Yeah. May,
Um,
may, may I ask you a question too?
oh,
Just
sure,
just-
go ahead.
you stationed overseas or here? Or?
I was never stationed overseas, but I did deploy and serve in combat situations, so I
Hmm.
do have some problems from that.
Hmm.
I do have some trauma early in my childhood that kind of rears its ugly head, similar to your childhood trauma,
Hmm.
um, that kind of plagues me. That the shamanic energy stuff that you're kind of talking about is very interesting to me. That I'm thinking about, like learning about and seeing how I can align better with those kinds of energies.
Hmm.
Um, and I'm currently in more of a paganistic like role, I guess you could say, experiencing what I believe is uh spiritually rewarding for myself. It's like somewhere between paganism and druidism, I guess.
Hmm. Hmm.
I'm a gardener and I'm an avid gardener.
Hmm.
I find that to be very, very rewarding.
Hmm.
And something about that and learning about plants and being close to it has kind of just kept feeding me,
Hmm.
which
Hmm.
made me want more of that.
Yes.
And the more I wanted of that, the more I realized that there was something in me that wanted that. It wasn't just like what Jung would say is the self. There's
Hmm.
something else about me that wants that. So
Hmm.
I'm like, what is this drive? What is this
Hmm.
drive? So I think there is some kind of divine presence that's kind of pushing me towards things.
Yes.
I'm not really sure. And it doesn't have to be defined for myself. I'm okay with just letting spirit kind of guide me for things.
Yes.
Um, and taking life as it kind of flows, and just trusting that things are going to make their way on the river of life, if you will, as they need
Sure.
to. And
Sure.
it's not always going to be a safe and easy ride. Sometimes it's kind of bumpy and sometimes you fall out the canoe.
Sure. Sure.
But, you get back in and you start over if you have to. Like this podcast, I started it back in 2022 for just reasons of, we'll just say for sake of just uh, preservation, for making sure I wasn't putting anything out that was dangerous, right?
Hmm.
That could
Hmm.
be misconstrued. I
Hmm.
paused the podcast and I pulled back my episodes. But
Hmm.
now that I'm no longer actively serving in a capacity that is could be like revealing of anything, I
Yes.
feel confident that what I'm doing with my spiritual work and with my analysis of dreams and sharing with people is very helpful for others and is hopefully helping to lead a front in the West that's going to help improve um, our dream work across the board and the value that um, we are able to gain from it. But if it's okay, I'd like to transition back to some more questions for
Please.
you.
Thank you. Beautiful what you said. Thank you.
Thank you. So we talked a little bit on the spiritual side of things, but I really want to know how you stand on both these worlds. You straddle them so very highly. You are on both the psychological, point, and then you're on the shamanic point, but you are in both of those worlds firmly planted. How do you merge your spiritual knowing with your scientific understanding of the mind? And how do these two languages complement each other?
Well, the Jungian world of the collective unconscious. if you think of the quiet as having everything, and then there's levels of abstraction within it. Some things are more abstract and some things are, as you go down to, concretization. And when you're in your gardening, uh, a lot of things have concretized. But in the world of nature, you, as I have believed, there's a certain natural balancing. Uh, Nature can kind of figure it out. And in, in Jungian psychology, there's this abstraction. I talked about the collective unconscious, the world of the archetypes. So that would be one of the things that came from the quiet. I think the quiet, shamans might, some that are particularly adept, might be able to even experience its energy before it's become particularized, even in the world of the collective unconscious. And so it's this ground from which all these other things come. And the things that come from it, we humans need words to describe things. And I'm just giving some words to describe the, uh, collective unconscious. I mean, it's not like a mother or a warrior, but to understand it, we put those labels on it. So
Mm-hmm.
that understanding for me, I mean, that's my own understanding, has
Mm-hmm.
been useful. And
Mm-hmm.
I operate from it. And the worlds that I'm inhabiting, which have been those worlds, teacher, businessman, uh, uh,
Mm-hmm.
it's possible for me to do so because I have that base work belief that guides me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think compartmentalization probably is really important, but also knowing uh, when to pull out certain things out of those boxes to relate to each other, to
Yes,
reinforce things or maybe challenge things in different arenas, right? Because,
absolutely.
yeah, right. So it's good to kind of have things that are a little bit different, but can complement each other because it kind of strengthens it, right?
Yeah, it does. Uh, and what came to mind when you were talking about that is it's just like when some of my writings I talk about, we all have a life that a story can be told about, and it has
Hmm.
chapters. And if we
Yes.
make changes in one chapter, oftentimes the changes happen in the other chapter. For example, we change our health, our relationships may change,
Hmm.
our workplace may change. If we change our relationship to a higher power, things change. As we
Yes.
change our, uh, uh, all the everything, can help influence everything else. And uh, for me, a lot of my trainings, I just my life was such that I needed to compartmentalize things, but and that's useful in some ways. But it's also nice to start to get the synthesis again, where everything's kind of coming together. So
Hmm.
um,
Yeah, and you said the coming together, so I'm interested. I know you went to school a long time ago and you were a practicing clinical psychologist and then retired, and then over 20 years now you've been through shamanic training and then have been practicing. So it's you're kind of a little bit stepped away from, but I don't know how involved you are in academia still, but do you see neuroscience beginning to like reinforce some of the ancient practices that you've seen in shamanic practices?
um, well, you know, we know that there are chemicals in the brain that help us keep from being overwhelmed by a lot of stimuli.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, when people do mystical work, they want to kind of druidic work, for example, they want to uh, ameliorate those, not have them be so active, so that you're more open to everything coming in.
Mm-hmm.
And I think uh, scientists, neuroscientists, are able to think about those things as they talk about the neurotransmitters. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
which ones you want to operate, which ones you don't. They all have impacts on your health. the idea that a lot of our mind and our wisdom is not just in the brain, it's other parts of the body. Those
Hmm.
things are starting to become more looked at, and
Hmm.
it's hard to like prove, that we don't have a lot of good experiments on it, but
Hmm.
we're finding out it's a little bit more complicated than we think, and there's certain states of mind that allow a person to be more open to some of these mystical experiences. I think we know that. And then how do you get to those? You do some of the your meditation, psychoactive
Hmm.
drugs, and
Hmm.
sleep deprivation, things like that. So we
Hmm.
know those things, and that's you know been happening. In my own
Hmm.
case, you were asking a little bit about how I've weathered these different lifetimes. Uh, Probably the first part of my life until I was close to 60, I was in a competitive, acquisitive kind of a
Hmm.
world, to get stuff and to
Oh
accomplish
yeah.
and compete. Uh, but after particularly the shamanic work, and I think the Jungian work certainly was a help lay a foundation for that, and just the things that I did in my life. I was interested in martial arts for many years, and some of the
Hmm.
places that has taken me, just in terms of practice and thinking about it, has also contributed to what I'm going to say next, and that is at about 60, I decided instead of accumulating, I wanted to start giving stuff away, such
Hmm.
that I become very active and still am in giving stuff away in philanthropy. And
Hmm.
so I think all those things for me have been possible because I've been fortunate enough to live longer than most anybody else in my family. And
Hmm.
so I just feel I'm on the house's money now, and enjoying it and trying to, do the best I can with the time I have left.
That is so beautiful. A life well lived is a gift anybody could hope to obtain, and hopefully be able to reach out and ripple towards others who are lucky enough to be close to you. That sounds so wonderful. There's some kind of harmony there that just kind of hums for me in hearing it. Um, that's so nice. All right, so we're okay. Another interesting question. So we were talking about the different archetypes, right?
Hmm.
In Jungian psychology.
Hmm.
All right. So I've been thinking about this for a while, and maybe you can enlighten me. But how can you tell when you're like under the influence of a particular archetype, or what does it feel like, or how can we become present to or aware of when they're acting through us?
Um, as part of my life and training, I like to go sometimes from the specific to the general, general to the specific, and you know, so with
I
that
see.
as with that as just uh, you know, a
I went
statement.
real general. So
Okay,
a lot of
no, no,
times
no, 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 no,
oh,
no,
okay, it's
no,
good. Okay, sorry.
no. So I get it, and uh, so to know what you're under, you first would say to yourself, am I under something? you know, and so the question kind of presumes that you're under something. And you say, all
Hmm.
right, I don't know what it is. And I want to understand. And well, kind of how is it working on me? And so then you're doing a little self reflection, say, well, what are my emotions recently? Well, I've been feeling this, that, and the other. And what have I been doing recently? So you're describing some stuff. And so your intellectual mind, your left brain, so to speak, is just kind of getting data on all these things from which you want to draw a conclusion as to, in your question to me, what archetypes
Hmm.
going on. So you've done all
Hmm.
that. You different times in the day, you say, what am I feeling? What's going on then? And you're getting a little bit of a picture. But
Hmm.
you still may not know really what that is. Uh,
Hmm.
and then, and this is kind of the work in my book, we have parts of ourselves that we're trying to with our conscious mind make sense of, but then you have this inner wisdom that I believe is there in all of us, and it's accessible. that one has to relate to it. And we're
Mm-hmm.
not going to do it now, Cherie, but let's just say
Mm-hmm.
we're going to do some work and you say, oh, okay,
Mm-hmm.
the question you posed to me, I want you to get into this meditative space. And here's how you're going to
Mm-hmm.
do it. And I just want you to kind of ask uh, this inner wisdom uh, to say, what's going on for me? I'm feeling under the throes of certain things. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Help me get a name for it. And
Mm-hmm.
uh, you start to have these inner dialogues. And
Mm-hmm.
having done this work for years with a number of people, if you do it long enough, you'll always get an answer, and it surprises you.
Yeah.
And if you don't get an answer, then you just can ask the question, you know, why am I not getting an answer? So there's always a question and answer. The beauty of this kind of work is it's not right or wrong, you know. It's
Right.
just it's
Mm-hmm.
evolving and you're doing it, and so by through that process, I would say a person can get
Mm-hmm.
a better sense of what's going on. Now you may not get a classic, you know, you may not be Mars, or you may not be Hestia, but you may
Mm-hmm.
find out, you know, you're a woman in transition that has
Mm-hmm.
these characteristics
Mm-hmm.
uh, of other women that all of a sudden come to your mind that you wouldn't even thought of had you not done this work. And then that gives your conscious mind a little bit more understanding of what's going on. And
Mm-hmm.
that's this dialogic process where, you know, this conscious, unconscious, you know, you have a thesis, antithesis, and a new synthesis, and then it goes on and
Mm-hmm.
on until we die.
That's mm-hmm. So that all jives with like what I do with my podcast. Um, I want to dig just a little bit before it though of what you said. Everything is built on the presupposition that you know you're under some kind of influence. To help my listeners and even myself kind of become a little bit more aware in the moment, what kind of things could they pay attention to? Like maybe are there some kind of emotional pulls that they could feel or symbolic forms that they see, whether in a dream or they keep seeing in their life that seems to keep popping up that they are present to? They're like, wow, I keep seeing this particular symbol or set of numbers. Maybe there's something to this. Um, would you say that maybe that there's something to that that they need to sit and think that are they under some kind of influence that they're aware of that?
Well, you were asking me what are the things they can think about, you know, that would allow them to feel they're under an influence. You just gave a
Hmm.
nice list, and you, and,
Yeah.
things like, yeah, yeah. I mean, are things kind of popping up in their life that
Hmm.
they're a little uh, not distraught about, but they're affected by, and they don't quite know what's going on. And that may be
Hmm.
you're not sleeping the way you used to. You may be dreaming a little bit. You may be absent-minded. You may, in this world of synchronicities, you may be seeing certain things. You may have a symbol. Uh, you know, all of a
Hmm.
sudden, you never, since your childhood, thought about a top, but all of a sudden you're picturing a top spinning around, and then
Hmm.
you're asking yourself, gee, what can that mean? I'm making this
Hmm.
up now, but hey,
Hmm.
uh, that talk that talk, talk that I'm seeing, it's on its side. Aren't they supposed to
Right.
be spinning? Well, is something about balance? It's like, gee, that's right. Or all of a sudden, and maybe it's going to lead you to a physical, neurological balancing, or maybe, hey, my life is out of balance. I'm working,
Hmm.
20 hours a day. I'm not doing this. So it's all those. It's having the ability to step back a little bit from what's
Hmm.
going on and trying to make sense of it. And when you can't
Hmm.
make sense of it completely with your rational mind, you
Hmm.
start doing the stuff I'm talking about in my book.
Hmm.
You journey, you
Exactly.
work on your dreams, you journal, you spend time in nature. Uh, I mean, you'll clearly, from what you said, believe in the healing power and the restorative power of nature, because you
Hmm.
like to be in it. Well, I think
Hmm.
everybody can afford themselves of that if they spend time in nature.
Hmm. Yes, that's definitely true. Even if it's just to go outside with your shoes and socks off just to put your feet in the mud. just for a little
Absolutely.
bit and feel like you're 5 years old again, just for a little bit and let your
Yeah,
spirit retouch the earth
yeah.
and just be silly for just a little bit. I know it might feel that way, but it can be so rewarding
Well,
to just lose yourself in the moment of feeling that connection.
yes,
And then you're just a little bit lighter for just a few minutes. You can do the
yes.
same thing by just laying under a tree and seeing what the tree tells you.
Yeah, lying down in the grass, that's
Hmm.
right. And if you have a little hill and you haven't done it for a while, roll down the hill. And I mean, just
Hmm.
there's a lot of fun things that life
Yeah. Don't take yourself
allow,
too seriously.
allows us to
Nature lets
do.
you be a kid.
Yeah, yeah, and that's, I think, fun and healing and good.
Hmm. Hmm. I agree. I agree. So thinking about the the Jungian side of archetypes and then the shamanic energies, um, I think that when you start to feel like you're under some kind of pull, you could say, I don't know if you agree with me or not, but would you say it makes sense that perhaps you're under influence of spirit or divine energy that maybe is helping to guide you towards what, I mean, Carl Jung might be saying the collective unconscious is trying to help guide you towards a more practical answer towards things, maybe that you do need to get more sleep. Maybe you do need to believe in yourself a little bit more. Maybe you do need to be a little bit more firm with your children, or whatever the message might be there in the archetypes that are present, right? Versus like in shamanic energy where you're asking for a little bit of peace and clarity from your past self and to inform and get permission to, live more at peace in your present self. Could you be under some kind of like, I need to meditate with this to grow to that peaceful state? Like you need to meditate because something is off. Like you're spiritually sick, I guess, at
Hmm.
least in the shamanic sense of what I'm saying.
Hmm.
But both of these are like related to spiritual guidance. Even though I know Jungian psychology is science, a lot of the archetypes I find very useful whenever I'm doing tarot
Yep.
because I see tarot and the tarot helps to unlock a lot of things in my mind when
Hmm.
I'm thinking about something.
Hmm.
And it's less about me thinking from my solidly logical self
Yes.
and more from that collective unconscious of like, oh, I didn't even think of that before, but maybe that's what's going on here. And then I try to put pieces together and I'm like, oh, okay, maybe that is what's happening here. And it
Yes.
just helps me solve things and feel a little less like I'm grasping at air. It gives me a rope.
Yes. And that what you're doing is both shamanic and Jungian. Both shamans would do that. Uh, we throw stones, or we have a uh, throw cocoa leaves. Uh, you know, and then you project onto that in the tarot cards. You can look at the major arcana, the minor arcana,
Hmm.
and uh, and in part, what do you project onto what you see and how you threw them in that
Hmm.
moment, and and
Hmm.
so shamans and Jungians, when they're dealing with these abstractions and trying to make sense of them, uh, do the same thing. They may have different languages, and in
Hmm.
the shamanic work, and a lot of the places where these folks have grown up, they have their own uh, symbols and their own. They just have different things that they can uh,
Hmm.
project onto and get information from. For example, in
Hmm.
one Peruvian shamanic worldview that I happen to be involved with, each direction has an animal associated with it, and in all the, and there's above and below, and and similarly, in many other traditions, there's things associated with the directions, and it can be an animal, a gemstone, a sound, a psychological attribute, uh, you know, many things. And if
Hmm.
people are wanting to gain or get rid of some things, they may tack onto that particular methodology and work with that symbol. And find transformation can come from doing that kind of work.
Yeah, it's great, and I definitely use it too. Because like you're saying, like sometimes it's like I don't want to say like you become two people, but it enables you to kind of externalize. Because I have a very strong inner voice,
Mm-hmm.
but sometimes I don't allow myself to have a discussion. So like when you do that, you're able to kind of like finish a thought before another set of thoughts are able to like come back for that back and forth conversation, right? So
Yes,
that the communication piece is so important because for communication to occur, at least two parties has to transmit a message and the other person has to receive it and then confirm that, yes, this is what I understood about this, right? Then communication has occurred, right?
yes,
Without this back and forth, you really can't say communication occurred, maybe just noise occurred, right?
yes.
So my brain is mostly just noise sometimes, and
Mm-hmm.
in meditative states, right? Whenever
Mm-hmm.
I'm in
Mm-hmm.
ritual state,
Mm-hmm.
I'm able to get to a state where I'm able to have like a communication session, right? Um,
Absolutely.
so it sounds like that is what's happening when you're talking about throwing stones. It sounds like that to me.
Yeah, yeah. It's uh, as you were saying, sometimes there'll be two voices in your head. Uh,
Mm,
for most people I know, they have had times in their life where they have said to themselves, "Gee, why did I do that?" Or "Why did I say that?" And an answer, I think, is because some part of yourself wanted to do it. And can you, as you were describing with your dialogue between maybe two voices, can you have a conversation that allows both to be heard so that that conscious part of you in the next encounter out in the world will maybe not say something you wish you hadn't or do something you wish you didn't. And that only comes from having some, I think, conversations with those parts of yourself that cause you to do the opposite. So
right. And
I
with some,
believe in that.
go ahead.
No, I believe in that.
Oh, yes. I was just going to say that perhaps the deeper spiritual meaning there that you could get to with some dream analysis, like dream work and with meditation, you could actually realize the deeper message here, your unconscious could help you unlock is that you
Yep,
are taught and programmed to feel shame for
yep,
that person who decided to behave a certain way.
yes,
But yourself is trying to decide whether to keep that programming or
yep,
to cast it away.
yes,
And it is hard to think of that when you're in your logical self because you're
yes,
trying to sustain both your feelings
hmm,
and who you identify in the moment with as who you are,
yes,
right? In your dream, all of that is flexy bendy and it's wonderful. You're
yes,
able to let go of that
yep,
and just let things exist however you need to expand and contract. Um, and if you can write it down, sometimes that deeper message to heal you and not keep getting stuck comes out, I find.
yes. But you have to, in my opinion, after you've done that work, have a strong enough ego to make sense of it all, because the
Mhm.
ego and just is going to make is going to decide what you're going to do next in the next moment. And
Mhm.
maybe you say, well, there's more parts of myself than the ego. I'm just using that as a shorthand for language. You know, given all the information you described that you might come up with by doing the work, somebody, some aspects of you has to decide, okay, what am I going to do next now as a result of all that? And I'm calling that the ego. The other thing that you said,
Yes.
Cherie, I thought was really important. You know, where you have to in any communication, you have to have a little bit of a pause. Uh,
Mhm.
yeah, I think before you have the action and the reaction, have a little space, both to be sure you understand it, but also to as you pre-program to respond in certain ways to certain things, give it a little space so you have a start to make a choice. Do I really want to respond the way I have in the past? And it's not a big intervention, but it's a very useful one. So you're just,
Mhm.
a little pause, the pause that refreshes.
Yes, I think that that's good to take into all life, not just your meditative space or in dream work or whatever, but just in
Yes,
life in general. Just to
yes,
take a pause and, check in with yourself. Is this in line with my higher self?
yes.
Because that can just help you be more aware in general.
Hmm.
I find too, like whenever I get really out of balance, I
Hmm.
find myself more stressed out and more anxious and more angry and easier to fall into bouts of depression. I have triggers for, trauma related triggers,
Hmm.
and those kinds of things will pop up more. So I realize, oh, you know what? I need to spend some time regrounding myself.
Sure.
I need to come back down and I need to clear out my energy
Hmm.
and make sure that I'm coming from a space that I mean to be coming from. And
Yeah.
that I think is it's basically a healthy cleansing, just like we take a bath. We are doing the
Yep.
same thing with our mind. And when you do this kind of work, you I'm telling you you have to do it even more because you do so much work in it. You become so creative. Anybody who can tell you that if you're creative and you make things, you get messy.
Hmm.
I'm
Hmm.
not thinking about all the papers I tear up and throw on the floor when I'm writing,
Sure.
but afterwards I do need to clean up though,
Sure.
Same thing is
Sure.
happening in your mind when you're coming up with ideas and stuff.
Yep.
You need to clean up that space. And if you let it pile up, your mind,
Hmm.
and it
Hmm.
comes out in other ways you don't mean it to.
Hmm.
Um, so sometimes I realize when I get a little bit spun out, I'm like, oh, I might need to like reground myself. So regrounding could really help me.
Yeah. And the Russian nesting doll kind of metaphor, everything is, if you have a physical body, a psychological body, maybe
Mm-hmm.
split into, let's just say, emotional body, which is psychological body, and
Mm-hmm.
a soul body and a spiritual body and an energetic body, all of which are similar but a little different. Uh, the big one would be your energy body. And if you're clearing your energy body, then that's going to give respite to all the other bodies. And when you were just saying, hey, I like to bare feet walk in the mud, that's a way to clear a lot of stuff. Uh, Lying on the grass can clear a lot of stuff. You know, Sitting by a running water can clear a lot of stuff in those other
Mm-hmm.
bodies, which then can go back into the other things we're talking about. Your emotional state, your physical state, and so forth. In my opinion.
Yes. So I have another question that has to do with archetypes.
Yep.
Um, I guess it does have to do with archetypes. All right. So we're kind of talking about dream work, and I was wondering, can we work with archetypes consciously and unconsciously? And what I mean by that is when we're both awake and asleep. I don't mean intentionally and unintentionally. I know that we can intentionally work with things and unintentionally work with things.
Hmm.
I mean to say that both when we are in our present waking mind
Hmm.
self
Hmm.
versus our sleeping state self unconscious,
Yep.
can we work with archetypes? And is there a way to strengthen our inner spiritual sensor, if you will, for recognizing these energies?
Um, I think the more we try to work with those unconscious ones, the more ability we have to work with them, and the more they may reveal themselves to us. And how does one do that? One does that by imaginal work, your dream work. So you have a
Mm-hmm.
dream that has, a lot of images to it. You write them down, and then you maybe associate, well, what comes to my mind when I do this? Not like in a textbook that says this means that, but for you, you write them
Mm-hmm.
down. And then you say, okay, why did I have this dream right now at this time? And uh, you may or may not get a hit on that. and uh, or all of a sudden it starts to make sense. And then you may say, gee, this is a kind of an interesting theme that's going on. I hadn't really been aware of it, but I am now that I'm thinking about it like this. Then you can measure, is it going on any place else in my life right now? And did it go into my life earlier? And so you get a little sense of that dynamic. And then you may say, is this like an archetypal thing? Once again, I'm the victim. And I never thought about it like that, but gee, life has screwed me over. And once again, I'm being reminded of that. Okay, well,
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of a, a sad realization. But then you're going
Mm-hmm.
to say, all right, now I see that. You can ask yourself, do I like that? Well, I guess in some ways I've liked it because I've allowed myself to be in it. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
would you really like it? Well, being honest, I like not to feel that way, but I don't know how to do that. And then you have these conversations, and then you're going to your inner work. And so Dreamwork,
Mm-hmm.
this is just a little quick example, but then you can do a shamanic journey. You do a shamanic journey to the lower world, and you try to maybe get a sense of some origins of the victimhood. And if you made some contracts in your life that
Mm-hmm.
you're unconscious of. And if you lost some soulfulness, over the course of your life, some gifts that you had as a kid, but you've lost them, you need to get some of that back. And so there's different ways to do that. And and then you can go on an upper world journey, which a lot of the mythologies and my own trainings is more the world of the future, the world of the becoming. And then you go into different chapters and things this might happen if that happens, and what do I need to do in order for it not to happen? So you're having those types of works, and then you can similarly go out into nature and just be open and say, hey, just Spirit, if it be Thy will, always saying Thy will be done. You
Mm-hmm.
know, if
Mm-hmm.
you want to give me a message about all the stuff that's going on is showing inside me, I'd appreciate it. And all of a sudden, you may see a leaf just coming down. You say, what does that have to do? And he said, I'm not going to pay attention to that. And then you look at something else. Then you look at the leaf again. It's just kind of on your lap. And you're looking at the colors and you're looking at the points and you're looking at the way the little stuff, all of a sudden, it's giving you information that you had no idea that it would. You say, what is it? So it's that type of work. And, it's playing in the fields of the Lord, Cherie. It's just
Mm-hmm.
being playful with yourself. Uh, and uh, being ruthlessly compassionate with yourself
Mm-hmm.
because part of you wants to change. I'm not saying you
Mm-hmm.
do, but part of us maybe want to change. We don't know how
Mm-hmm.
to. We can't. And all of these practices may help us find a way to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right now I just turned 40 this month.
Hmm.
So I'm reaching a new state in my life where I'm realizing about myself that I have been um, kind of doing what I thought was leading the way and kind of making a way for myself. And I have been, I'm very proud of what I've accomplished and what I have created with my spouse and with my life thus far. But I'm also realizing that I have allowed a lot of things to happen in my life. And I have grown very comfortable with just letting things spiritually come to me as they do. Um, and some part of me is kind of encouraging me to reach out and actually take the wheel on
Hmm.
things.
Hmm.
And I'm at a crossroads right now where I'm trying to develop the courage to actually not be an overthinker and just grab it and figure out where the hell I'm taking it.
Hmm. Hmm.
Because I'm in the ship anyway, right? I
Hmm.
might as well play the captain if I'm
Hmm.
in it.
Hmm. Hmm.
So, I mean, that makes good logical sense.
Hmm.
Um, and I know it's not going to sink. I mean, I trust everything that it's going to work out and it's going to be
Hmm.
great. There's going to be challenges. And every time we come into harbor and we depart for another adventure, it's going to be great because life is great. Whether it's, you know, enjoyable or difficult, those, the peaks and valleys of life, right?
Hmm.
But I know it always works out.
Hmm.
There's something right now that's kind of challenging me to actually be more of the captain. And that's where I'm at as far as the change that you mentioned, the
Hmm.
transformation, if you will. So part of
Hmm.
you has to completely die to take on this new role. That's not to say that uh, who I was is no longer, because all of that
Hmm.
is still part of me. But
Sure.
in order to change, great transformation requires a great amount of struggle and challenge to create this change. And I feel the pressure of that right now.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I'm kind of at a boiling point on some of
Hmm.
my own change, but that's really exciting though too,
You bet.
because that
You bet.
means good things are coming. I'm
Yes,
not
it
at a
does.
state right now where it's things are boring
No.
or I'm
Right.
watching everything else happen.
Yeah.
Something's happening for me in my own
Hmm.
story.
Yes.
So that's something to take ownership of and be very involved in and not just sitting back and watching it happen, right?
Yes.
Um, so that's why I started my podcast back up because I no longer want to be a victim, if you will, of the
Hmm.
things that I'm afraid of.
Hmm. Hmm.
Some of my trauma is back there, and I am scared sometimes of the things that come up,
Hmm.
but there are resources and there are people, and I have lots of friends and family and
Hmm.
wonderful people like you who are constantly mentoring me and encouraging me. And I have to kind of trust that network that it's going to keep catching me
Hmm.
as I
Hmm.
go. And as I kind of go along, I'm going to be doing the same thing for other people. But if we don't do it and we don't bravely go, nobody
Hmm.
goes. There's nothing built. So we have to bravely go. So that's
Yes.
where I'm at.
Well, that's a
Um,
unsettling place to be, but it's a great place to be too. And uh,
yeah.
yeah, when you're on that ship, is it going to be a sailing ship with you're going to have that wheel? Is it going to have a motor to it? Is it going to have both? Are you going to be on an ocean? Are you going to be on a lake? You're going to be in a river? Is it going to be a ship that can go on all those? And what happens when you have a big storm? Are you going to have ways to batten it down? And who's going to be your crew? And you got lots of
hmm
what are your provisions going to be on it? And what uh, what you're going to have ports to go to kind of get refreshed and lots of fun things to think about on that ship.
It's so funny when you say it like that. I kind of think of like big fish. I think
Mm-hmm.
of like sometimes I walk through life and I have this very fantastic imagination
Hmm.
of what actually is occurring in my life. But
Hmm.
to a lot of people, I have a very mundane life, you know,
Hmm.
uh, from the outside. But to me, I'm on an epic journey.
Hmm. Hmm.
I've got a battle of epic proportions going on over here. And it's
Hmm.
very interesting to me because, hey, it's my life. Okay.
Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
of course, I'm going to make sure that it's interesting and exciting. And there's a whole story that goes along with it. And if I'm on a ship, of course, it's a pirate ship. And there's a whole
Hmm.
adventure that goes along with that and treasure and the whole
Hmm.
nine yards. Okay.
Yes.
But I may actually just be on a little, boat with 60 horsepower on the lake and putzing around. But in my mind, I am on a captain ship
Yeah.
and I'm living the best life. So
Yeah.
I guess cup half full kind of person, right?
Mm, mm, mm,
So, enough is enough, right? You don't have to have everything, but if you have enough, enough is as good as a feast. It's what you make of it. That's kind of my mantra. Um, as long as you have enough, that's great. You can make a lot out of that. Um, and
I
may we
remember
all have enough.
yes, I forget, it was some Greek philosopher. Uh, it said, nothing is enough for the man or the woman for whom enough is too little. And I
I
always
have to
thought,
think about that one.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's just, for some people, nothing is ever enough. Uh,
Yes,
and
that's very sad.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I don't want to live that life. It's a very hollow existence. Um,
Hmm.
but back to some questions for you.
Hmm.
For our less for the listeners out there who want to deepen in this work of like archetypes and intuition and awareness, um, what would you say is the potential power that they could have in developing these skills of like dream work, shamanic practice, maybe studying Jungian psychology, or even learning to use tarot?
You mean, Sheree, the power they would gain from so practicing, or
Hmm.
is that the question? What would they
Sure,
gain from
yes.
that?
Yeah,
Yeah,
what potential power?
yeah. Well, I think to learn how to relate to the non-conscious parts of ourselves is useful, and to
Hmm.
do it in a way that's respectful, and learning how to take a stand against it and not be overwhelmed by it. Some people get into do the inner work, and you encounter some figure that says, "Gee, Carl, I don't like you. I'd like to kill you." That's very scary to some people. They get that in a dream or something. And, and so the ego
Hmm.
part that just heard that says, "Well, I hear you. I understand that.
Hmm.
But I'm not going to let you do that. And I'm not going to give you a lot of airtime if you're going to continue to talk like that." But before we hang up, so to speak,
Hmm.
why do you feel that way? Or what's that about? And then maybe you get some sense. So it's learning how to take stands against all these parts. And sometimes
Hmm.
people say, "Hey, I don't want to do the work because it's too scary."
Hmm.
And yeah, just have to take a stand against that stance, uh, and either say, "I'm not going to do it because it is too scary," or "I'm going to do it and I'm going to take a stand against those parts of me that right now are hostile to me."
Hmm. So you mentioned like something scary in your mind, right,
Hmm.
that visits you. So I'll share one for myself for the
Hmm.
listeners. Um, I actually was kind of tortured on many nights dealing with some of my past trauma by being visited regularly by a bear. Sometimes the bear was far away, but very often the bear would chase me,
Hmm.
and regularly the bear would actually catch me and eat me.
Hmm.
And it was a very terrifying experience, as you can
Hmm.
imagine, like
Yeah.
actually waking up to the feeling of being eaten by a bear.
Yes.
Um, it was immensely terrifying.
Hmm.
And so I was going through bouts of not being able to sleep, and I had therapy that I was going through. And obviously I was, going through medication and trying to figure out what might help me.
Hmm.
And really, I talked to a therapist who eventually said, maybe the bear represents something good. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, how
Hmm.
could the bear represent something good?
Hmm.
And he just struck a chord with me that kind of stuck with me that I kept thinking about. And it took me months to really work with it and be okay with it because I'm a fearful person.
Yep.
But I realized that the bear really was a way that it was a part of my life and it was a part of me that was trying to catch up with me and get my
Hmm.
attention that I was trying to bury and keep away from myself.
Yes. Yes.
And I couldn't understand it because I was completely out of touch with the spiritual side of myself. I
Yes.
was only listening to the very logical side of my brain, as you would say, like your businessman life.
Yep.
I was in performance mode. I was in success mode. I was in, I'm going to do well. I'm going to succeed. I
Hmm.
was not paying attention to, some of the stuff that I needed to be working on that was bothering me as an individual.
Hmm. Hmm.
And it took me a while to kind of work through that because I hadn't developed a ritual practice to kind of help me pick
Hmm.
apart what was going on.
Hmm.
Um, but rather than being afraid of it, I'm able to, because I have some ritual practices, I'm able to go, okay, there's something I'm scared of. Let's name what it is, and if I see it again, rather than just running away or just waking myself up or being afraid to fall asleep, find it in myself to ask it what it wants.
You bet.
That doesn't mean I have to give it. That
No.
doesn't mean that I agree. It just means I want information.
Absolutely.
That's it.
Yeah.
So
And then, yeah,
leading with
yeah,
a sense of curiosity about this
yes.
just allows me to realize like my mind is actually a safe place
Hmm.
and just trust it. It's,
Hmm.
spirit is going to help you work through it. That's kind of what helped me. And I hopefully it will help others, but that's what's worked for me.
Yes. And as you have described that, uh, the bear came many times, and one approach is to ask the bear, is say, why do you keep coming into my dreams? And why do you want to eat me? And the theory that, our dreams, they're all parts of ourselves. And so when you're asking the bear, hey, what do you want from me? Why do you want to eat me? Uh, what's it going to be like for me if I'm going to be inside of you? So you're really kind of having a conversation with this energy, which is part of you, in a way that is kind of as a co-equal to it, and and then it's going to tell you stuff or not, uh, and it's all data for the
Mm-hmm.
Sheree that's just talking now to make a
Mm-hmm.
decision. What do you want to do the next time something like that happens? Because if it is all parts of you, which in some real way it is, uh,
Mm-hmm.
then it just has information. It may not be a part of
Right.
you that right now you're in sync with, and it's
Mm-hmm.
you got a good relationship with,
Right.
and you may never.
Right.
But so what?
Well, for
Yeah,
fortunately for me, I made peace with the bear.
yeah,
And every other time I've ever seen it in my dreams, it's
yes,
always just been a reminder to keep the peace.
yes,
It's never come at me again. It's always just been a, hey, remember that the forest is here
hmm,
and that you need to respect things. And
hmm.
I just always am like, yep, got it.
That's a great message. Yeah,
Mm-hmm,
force is always here with people
mm-hmm,
and things in it that we don't
mm-hmm.
know.
But it's
But
not a fearful thing. It's
yeah,
like a just remember that you have a pact, to, be respectful and acknowledge when things come to you that you'll
yes,
listen.
for sure.
And you said that you'll listen, so listen. And I do. And then I'm
Yep,
just like, okay, I saw the bear again.
yep,
And then it's just like I take a moment to have gratitude that
hmm,
I've, said, okay, I'm gonna listen to the things that come to me.
yes,
Thanks for reminding me of my pact.
you bet. Yes, yes.
So, I've got an interesting question for you that has to do with Dreamwork still, and it's kind of the closing question. Um, why do you think many in Western society struggle to feel connected to the collective unconscious? And do you think that we undervalue dream work? And what do we lose when we overlook it?
Well, there are some cultures that from the time kids are little, they value dream work, so they talk about their dreams and they have group dreaming, and so they grow up in a culture where dreams are just part of life. Uh, that's just not, uh, in general, what we do, although I'm sure there's subgroups in America that still has some of those practices.
Sure,
Uh,
yeah.
and uh, in a world that uh, values analytical thinking and thinking, and even now I'm not much of a uh, knowledgeable about social media and things, but I do know people often are spending countless hours a week on it. Uh,
Oh, yeah.
and it's just so you don't have to think too much. You're getting information that's kind of um,
Mm-hmm.
prepackaged, maybe in many cases to try to influence you. Uh, you
Mm-hmm.
may not have a lot of uh, brain width, or, it just doesn't, well, a dream's just a nuisance, and maybe it's scary, but, I'm going to drink or do a drug so I don't dream, or, whatever people do to self-soothe. Now, I'm oversimplifying it. And many people have learned that their dreams are useful information just as you did,
Mm-hmm.
and I have. But
Mm-hmm.
I think they have to have some experiences that that is so. And
Mm-hmm.
uh, so I just think it's the world we live
Mm-hmm.
in the way we uh, value consciousness and science over the unseen things. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
but there's a growing, for every force, there's a opposite force. I think there's a, like you're seeing, a lot of people are into paganism. They're into, uh,
Mm-hmm.
these mystical uh,
Mm-hmm.
practices because they feel that they're missing
Mm-hmm.
something. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
the trick is, as we've been talking about for the time we've been talking, how do you integrate those into one's life so that your day to day is better, as
Mm-hmm.
defined by you, what better is, than it would be had you
Mm-hmm.
not done it. And my belief, and I think from talking to you, your belief is your life is better if you can learn to have relationships to these worlds that we're talking about.
Yes.
And uh, and many people they want to do the psychedelic drugs, and they want to go on
Mm-hmm.
meditation retreats and
Mm-hmm.
yoga, and there's a lot of calls, Jungian psychology, to
Mm-hmm.
explore these things. And everybody in their own way is going to have, hopefully, experiences that are going to allow them to have more information from which they can choose to live their lives differently or not. Uh, but it starts off in many cases with somebody asking themselves, hey, am I happy with my story now? And if you say, well, not so much, and say, well, why don't you
Mm-hmm.
change it? And then you say, well, because of this, this, and the other thing, uh, can you work on this, this, and the other thing in ways so that you can change it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a certain set of ownership that people need to have that I feel like in our society right now, it's just what is fast and easy and hot and ready. Just give me that thing
Yeah,
and feed me that thing. And there's so much of it. And there's like a culture of gluttony, of give me all of this stuff. But that doesn't mean
sure.
it's good for you. It
Right.
doesn't mean that it's wholesome or um, you need enough of the good stuff that's gonna help you to live a life with purpose, as you mentioned before.
Yep.
And nobody has promised you that you're gonna have X amount of days on this plane of existence.
Yep.
You've not signed a contract to give you that, you know. And if you
Yep.
have, please have a conversation with me because
Sure.
I skipped that session.
Sure.
Um,
Sure.
but or maybe I don't want to know what that contract looks like. But anyways, because who wants to know when they die, right? That's always a question too. Like, if you could know when you're gonna die, would you want to know? I don't know. Um, but yeah, we don't necessarily have like all the time in the world, but when the time does come, you want to have, said that, did I enjoy that that was my very last sunrise? Or did I forget to look at the sun when it came up that morning?
Yes.
You know,
Yep. Yep.
and it's just a closing thought I just kind of came up with. It is one of the reasons my husband fell in love with me was that even when I was in my 20s, he said, "You just see the world in a different way. I've never slowed down to look at things the way that you look at the world." And I think that certain people are just more sensitive in general to just get in touch with spirit.
Hmm.
And if people just slow down just a little bit in your day and be a little bit intentional, you can find that thread and strengthen it like a muscle, just like going to the gym. Just start by little by little, give yourself some intentional space to either look at the sunrise, put your feet in the mud, or have a meditation, do a guided meditation. I mean, some of these guided meditations are only 10 minutes long, and they
Right.
can be very, very rewarding
Yep.
for clearing out your energies and yourself and resetting you for the entire week. And you'll see increased performance across the board because like Dr. Jung was or Dr. Greer was just saying, you can improve the very center of the Russian nesting doll will, expand across the board. All of those become healthier. Um, And and before we wrap up, can you please tell our listeners here today where they can find your books and some of your upcoming work and just keep in touch with you?
Uh, well, my books are in Amazon, Barnes and Noble, uh,
Hmm.
places like that, some bookstores. And I have a website, carlgreer.com, and I'm not currently doing any teaching or seeing clients, but I'm having periodic conversations like I'm having with you now, and I appreciate Cherie the conversation. It's been fun to talk to you.
Oh my gosh, I'm so grateful that you came. You are a lovely human being and a delight to talk to, Dr. Greer. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank
And
you.
and to everyone listening today, may your dreams speak, may your archetypes guide you, and may your cups overflow.